Bam, there we are. Party people in the place to be. What's good? It's Uncle Freezy in the building. Salute to the vibes and stuff audience. Right tonight, we're gonna talk about some things that I'm not necessarily an expert in. I am interested in, and so I'm gonna bring in somebody who knows more about this topic than I do, and probably knows more about it than we do as a collective. Pick his brain, learn new stuff. Man, hey, show some love for Ivory 10. Ivory 10 is in the building. Salute.
Salute, salute, fam. Salute, salute, salute. How's everybody doing tonight? It is a pleasure to be here with you. Uncle Freezy, thank you so much for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here.
Hey, no doubt, bro. My question is, first of all, why is financial literacy important to you?
Just before we even get started, Freeze, I do want to just kind of say that the views that I'm going to express tonight are my opinions and my opinions alone. I am not a financial advisor. I
Right?
am not giving financial advice or legal advice. I just want to make sure that Blow Orange Tears, as well as the folks I work with and work for, know that this is the opinions of my own and not for the people I work with and work for.
Hey, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Hey everybody. Hey everybody. This is not, I'm not speaking on behalf of an entity. I'm speaking on behalf of myself based on my experiences. And what I would say is take in the information for educational purposes only. It's not financial advice. And if you need financial advice, please seek the assistance of a financial advisor.
100%.
So, because I
100%.
got stuff on the line, I have like certain things on the line. I can't risk it because somebody,
No, I hear that.
because
I
somebody
hear
took,
that.
you know what I'm saying? Somebody took their child support money and made it bad. I can't risk it. So, but yeah, man. So
So,
first
so
of all, glad you here.
Yeah, this is so important. This is something that I used to do somewhat for a living because I thought it was just that important. I walked away from a position at a large telecommunications company, a large, very good position. I just needed to do something that was different and impactful. And when I discovered financial literacy, or when I came across the cryptocurrency industry, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. What I do is, I was about 40 years old, and of course now much older than that. I was about 40 years old,
Me
and it
too.
was the point where I was looking around, and I had worked good jobs throughout my career, but I was wondering, 401k, I had saved up maybe, every year I was putting into 401k, but I'm looking around,
Me
a
too.
couple of $100,000 in 401k when I'm 40 years old.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm wondering, how is this really going to support me? How is this going to do it? And I really began to get very, very nervous. It was one of the first times where I really started to spend a lot of time thinking about how in the world do people retire? How does this happen? And I was blown away because I had done relatively well throughout my career, but here I was in that situation, and I'm like, man, something has to change. What I began doing is listening to some really, really bright people, really, really influential people in the industry, people like Michael Saylor, the CEO of MicroStrategies, people like Jeff Booth, people that are really, really much more learned than myself and much more educated and experienced on these topics than myself. I really have always been the type of person that I knew I only knew so much, and I had to be around other people who knew, or at least kind of understood, for it to kind of rub off on me to kind of learn. So today, what I'll start with is really something that I've heard Michael Saylor talk about and how he introduces this topic, which I think was a really brilliant way to do it. So I'll try and replicate it. I will be nowhere near as smooth as he is, for anyone that knows who that is. He started off with a few questions like this. He goes, what is the problem? What is this solution? And what is money? Okay.
Right.
Let's start with what is money. In history, we've used just about everything for money, right? We've used tobacco bales in the future. We've used the giant rocks of the Yap people as money.
Right.
Places in Africa have used very shiny beads, very nice beads. They almost look like gems, these glass beads. Well, the problem with money, or the challenge with money, I should say, is how hard your money is. Hard meaning, how hard is it to duplicate or to replicate?
Right.
If it's very easy to replicate your money, you're going to work very hard for something that someone else can duplicate in no time. Well, what does that say for your energy and your value? So money, this unit of value that we use to trade with, or this, I like to refer to money as almost monetary energy, right? We have to put forth a lot of energy to gain money. So that's our monetary energy. And all these things we work for to get money are really not for money, right? They're for the things that money provides us, which is food for our families, energy, comfort, you name it. It's really not about money. It's about what money provides. So when it's easy and not very hard money and easy money to replicate, like glass beads, Europeans will sail over to this place where they're using glass beads. They'll find out that that's their money, go back home, have it manufactured, go back to the island with all these glass beads and enslave everybody on the island. They'll buy all the property and enslave everybody on the island. So it's very important that you have hard money, right? So eventually, as we went through time, we then got to gold and silver, right? Even today, we're still using gold and silver almost as monetary commodities, right? They're looked at as commodities because they're very difficult. They're very difficult to produce. But the fact of the matter is, if you can produce it, you can basically, that means you're inflating it and you're creating more, right? So you've never heard anyone get rich by buying gold, right? You've heard throughout history people talk about diversification and so on and so forth. No one ever got rich by diversifying, right? Jeff Bezos, he didn't diversify. He had Amazon. That was it. Bill Gates, that was it. These guys have one thing that they put their money into, and it's a winner. They put their money in a winner, and that's how they get rich. Once they're rich, they might buy some gold. They might diversify, because that's all about holding on to wealth. Diversification is all about holding on to wealth. It's not about building wealth. No one buys gold to get rich. And if you look at the performance of gold over the years, when gold shot up the highest amount that it did, that was when the government basically confiscated all of it and said, you're not allowed to have it. And that's when they raised the price of it a lot. So money is the unit of account that we use to trade with one another. And how hard that money is very, very important. Okay. Now, what's the problem? The problem is inflation. Okay. Inflation is the problem. Right? What do I mean by inflation? Inflation is the amount you pay for goods versus what you're going to pay next year, right? It's that volatility of those goods and services, the cost of them. Are they going up? Are they going down? What percentage are they going up and down? Let's be honest, they never go down. They just go up. So what percentage are they going up and how fast are they going up? Well, you and I, Freezy, we've been around for a while and we've seen prices do some absolutely crazy things in our lifetime. But just recently, I saw something on television that was really, really moving. It was really, really entertaining and funny at the same time. Was like mind blowing. And you may have seen it. It was actually, they even replayed it on late night television, where there was two 9-year-old English girls had went up to an ice cream machine and they wanted to buy a couple of ice creams. And there's two English girls, and then all of a sudden they're walking back, and one of the adults sees the two girls walking away from the ice cream truck, and they're like, what girls, what happened? They're like, so we tried to buy 2 ice creams and he wants 9 quid. 9 quid. He wants 2 ice creams, right? He's not going to get anywhere with that. And everyone's listening to this very bold 9-year-old, and she's just speaking loudly and talking about prices and how much they've been.
Very adult-like education over a childlike product.
She's 9 years old and she's already talking about how she's seen prices increase in her lifetime.
Right.
And she's even saying, I bet he can hear me saying this. Is what she says at the end of a 9-year-old, Freezy.
They were very frustrated, bro.
I don't remember the last time. I don't remember how old I was when I first started noticing price changes, but I guarantee you I wasn't 9 years old.
Right.
I wasn't 9 years old. Right.
No,
what's happening now that a 9-year-old is seeing price differences? A 9-year-old, right? So what's happening is inflation. Inflation has taken off and gone crazy ever since the pandemic, right? What happened during the pandemic? They said, everybody stay home. We'll send everybody money, right? They sent everybody money, PPP loans, you name it. The US dollar, I think they printed 40% of every US dollar that is, actually it's more than 40% now of every US dollar that is on the street. More than 40% that is globally worldwide and available was printed in the last 4 years. 40% of our energy was produced in 4 years.
Right. Right.
So with that, and what happened to housing prices? How much did they go up in 4 years?
Crazy.
Like 40%,
The
50%?
price of lumber, bro,
Right?
was ridiculous.
Lumber, that was going bananas, right? The price of anything precious and desirable went up 30, 40% as well.
Right.
So people say, well, why doesn't the government, if they're printing money, why don't they just print and give everybody $1 million? Well, because if they did that, that doesn't solve the problem, right?
Right.
Because then a house would be $10 million.
Right.
There's no difference. But, you try and explain some of this to people in our community, and it's hard, right? It's hard for our community because our community doesn't pay a lot of attention to investing because our community is trying so hard just to make it day to day. Saving is very, very difficult for our community because we're worried about the day to day. We've got to take care of what we need to put food on the table tonight.
Right.
We're not worried about in 10 years what we're going to have, blah, blah, blah. My kids got to eat tonight. So that's why what we're going to talk about tonight, as far as the solution, is so important because all of us can participate at any level you want. And when I mean any level, I mean you can buy $10 worth of this stuff a week, a month. You can buy $20 a month. And let me just tell you, you might think that it won't add up and it means nothing, but this is the best performing asset in the history of man, right? So the problem is inflation and inflating the currency. When we print money, whether it's to give 20 billion to, I think we just signed another agreement to give Ukraine 60 billion, another 60 billion over 10 years.
Right.
I think we're going to give Israel another, another 30 billion, to fight some wars. So all this money has to be printed. And right now we're so in debt that we build up over $1 trillion of debt every 100 days in this country. So whenever we go to print money to give it to this one, to give it to that one, it doesn't matter whether it's for what we consider a good purpose or a bad purpose. The public pays for that with inflation because they've got to print money to do it. If I have to work all week to make $1,000, right, and someone else can just press a button and print $1,000, he just made my $1,000 cheaper. He just made my $1,000 a lot less valuable.
Right. Now you have to work 2 weeks to get $1,000, basically.
Right. Because he's just doubled the current. He's just doubled it, by doing nothing. So whenever we print with, a lot of the people, we get, we got those checks. Everyone got a bunch of checks during the pandemic and everything else. We want to paying for it today, right? So when we give out money, it's not necessarily the answer because how many of us today feel much wealthier than we felt 3 years ago, a few years ago? I mean, most of us are probably doing a little bit better, but do you feel like you're doing it better? Do you feel like you're wealthier? It's very hard to feel it when the precious, desirable assets you want are going up in price so dramatically, right?
Right. And one of the things I wanted to speak to about wealth, right? When we speak about wealth, for those that don't know the difference between being rich and being wealthy, it's one of those things you can think about it like, in layman's terms, in my opinion, it's always think about it as if one is your checking account and one is your savings account, right? Exactly. When you're wealthy, you have money beyond your means of whatever, right? When you're rich, you should still have the goal to be wealthy. Even if you're rich, you still want to be wealthy, right? Wealthy in my mind has always been, I can take care of myself beyond this month, this year, this decade, because that money is making money for itself, right? When you're rich, say if you're a Powerball winner, right? One day you have $7 to your name. The next day you have $7 million to your name. Are you rich or are you wealthy? The thing about being wealthy is also a mindset, right? A mindset of, I don't need certain things to be confident in who I am as an individual. When you're rich, and listen, I can't say that I've ever been either. I've been okay, right? I've been okay. I hadn't been either, right? But when you're rich, do you really need 3 Lamborghinis? Right? Hey, honestly, a Chevy SUV should do you fine. Maybe, the mindset. And the reason why I wanted to state that clearly is because you mentioned something. right? You mentioned the $20 or $10 maybe a month into an investment, right?
Yes.
How many families throw away $10 a month on nonsense?
Exactly.
McDonald's.
Exactly. Exactly. So the amount of money that we're talking about today, we're not talking about rich, we're not talking about wealthy, we're talking about the lowest levels of income possible that you can begin saving today and buying the
Right,
best asset in the world.
right,
Okay, that's the gift that we've been given, is that
right,
you're able to buy the most advanced, the highest performant asset in the history of man with $10. Okay. Up until now, you couldn't buy a house, right? You can buy a piece of a house. You can't buy $10 worth of a house. You can't buy $10 worth of any other asset. You can't buy $20 worth of a Vincent Van Gogh painting, right?
or a car.
And to be honest with you, Freezy, a lot of these guys are buying these crazy paintings and crazy cars. A lot of them are doing it for an investment. They're not doing it to say, hey, look at my cars. They're saying, hey, I've got nowhere else to put my money.
Right,
If I put it in the stock market, there's only 7 companies outperforming inflation.
right,
7 out of the
right.
Fortune 500, 493 of them are not outperforming inflation. This,
Inflation. Right,
this is a fact.
right.
Okay, so if they're losing money, so what do? If you're wealthy, even if you're poor, if you're anyone, where do you put your money to conserve your monetary energy? Where can you put your money that you can say, hey, I'm putting $1,000 there today. In 10 years, I want this to be worth what $1,000 would be worth, not
Well, let me ask.
$1,000
May I
today.
ask you a novice question on
Sure,
based on that? Then, what
sure.
if the average everyday person says, "Hey, man, I'll just put that money in my savings account."
Well, see, that's part of the problem. So if you have a lot of cash, they used to say cash is king. Right now, cash is trash. And the
Right,
reason why cash is trash is because of inflation. You can
right,
put that money there and it'll be very safe. But remember, you're losing 10 to 12% of its value every year
right,
in inflation. So
right.
to prove that to you, say you wanted to buy some stocks
Is
with.
that real value or projected value?
No, that's what it is. See,
Okay, okay,
you'll hear CPI, they'll tell you that it's 3%. They'll say it's 7% now. They actually said it was 7.5. Well, if they're
right.
saying it's 7.5, what do you really think it is? Okay. We got to remember they picked the basket of goods
For
that
you,
is going up 7.5.
yeah,
So they pick the things that are going to stay low, right?
right,
Sure, Netflix, frozen pizzas, all manufactured crap. Food
right,
and energy is not in the equation of inflation. It's not. It's not part of that measurement. And
right,
you might want to say why? Why? How could you measure this without measuring food? Who can live without food and energy?
right,
How can you tell me what my expenses are every year, how much they're going up if you're not measuring the 2 things I need most?
right.
So it's a goof, it's a gimmick, it's a farce, it's nonsense. Inflation is theft. At the end of the day, my opinion is inflation is theft, right? You
Okay.
go to school, they'll tell you in school 3% inflation is healthy. It's for a healthy economy. Well, guess what? You're telling me that I've got to work, what, in 5 years, I've got to work, 15% harder every year just to
Every
keep
year.
up? Every year I've
and
got to
and
keep
work
up.
long and work for a longer part of your life. There's no You and I are not gonna more than likely you and I probably won't retire at 65.
Right,
More than likely.
right,
If
right,
we stayed on a certain path.
right,
Right now, if you alter your path and then you do the investing, then we could probably retire before then. But based on what we learned in public schools and things of that sort, you work to a certain age, you retire, and then you may get a part-time job greeting people that walk into your Walmart or something, and then you live a Spartan life until you die, until your money runs out. That's what we're taught, right? But we're not taught to be wealthy. We're taught to follow the model and try to survive within that model.
we're taught to be employees.
Right,
We're
right,
taught to be
right,
employees for our lives, right? No, why do we not have one class on money?
right.
They had economics class and blah, 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 and they taught us a lot of nonsense about diversification and economics. We all know that's nonsense.
How to
No one
balance
got
your
rich by
checkbook. Yeah,
diversifying.
Like we were taught how to balance our checkbooks, right?
Right. They
Things
don't
like
even
that.
learn that nowadays, but we don't. When do you taught about money? One of the most important things in our society is money. And how are you? We're not taught how to work with it, how to use it, we're not taught about taxes, right? We're not taught about how to take advantage of some of these things. I mean, we're just not taught that stuff. And it's for a reason. It's done on purpose. They want to breed us to be just employees, and you just go to work every day. Leave the thinking to me. You just keep working and leave the thinking to me.
Right.
Well, if we leave it to them, me, that 9-year-old girl, will never pay $2 for an ice cream again, and it's
Right.
just going to keep rising. So what
Right.
happened after the pandemic is we've gone into a situation where we can't turn around now. We're printing so much money, and we're in such a bad situation that the dollar is now losing its strength globally.
Right.
You may have heard about the end of the petrodollar. You've seen Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia cancel their agreements with the U.S. to buy oil in U.S. dollars.
Yep.
Maybe the audience knows, maybe they don't. Whenever any world nation goes to buy oil, they have to buy it in U.S. dollars. Okay, and
Right.
there's a whole bunch of reasons for that we can go into about history. You win the war,
Yeah.
you make the rules. The rules
Yeah.
were you buy oil in U.S.
It's
dollars,
geopolitical. Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
U.S. is coming for you. That's the way it
Yeah.
was, and
Yeah.
that's the way it's been. That was recently canceled. So now you have all these nations that are saying we're moving away from the dollar because you're inflating it so much, you're printing so much, it has no value.
Right.
I got to pay you twice. Why would I hold on to these dollar bills when they're losing so much value? That's why every rich person, they don't keep their money in cash. They buy assets, they buy
Right.
things, right? Because
Right.
as prices increase, so do the cost of a house. So does the cost of that Lamborghini.
Right.
So does the price of that Salvador Dali painting.
Right.
That's why the wealthy own assets, because they know that our whole system is based on debt and based on printing money and inflating the currency. And when you inflate the currency, assets rise in value, but all the people working for cash and all the people that don't have assets are the people that pay the price. So whenever you inflate the currency, you're robbing from the poor and giving to the rich. You
Right.
saw during the pandemic, there were 3 numbers on the screen. One of them was the unemployment number skyrocketing. The
Right.
number of deaths were skyrocketing. And then you saw the stock market skyrocketing, going
Right.
up like you wouldn't believe. Why is the stock market flying when everyone's losing their job? It's because when you inflate the currency and you print money and you send everyone money, assets go up. When
Assets
there's a
go
lot of
up.
money around, there's no assets to buy. When there's no money around, there's plenty of assets to
Wait.
buy.
So are you telling me then, the folks that are not investing in crypto and other similar aspects are legit causing themselves to miss out on the party? Then is what I'm getting. So because
I don't
basically
want to
what
blame it on them. It's not their fault that the government is deciding to make decisions that's going to take money out of their pocket. It's not fair to blame them.
no, I'm
But
not saying they're no, I'm not saying they're I'm not blaming them. Right. What I'm saying is they're missing out on because the wealthy are getting more and more wealthy, right?
right,
Right.
right.
Because because
They
they
have
are
assets.
invested in a certain way, but those that never chose to invest and took that money and maybe bought a 60-inch TV,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
They are not going to reap the rewards of somebody that took that same amount of money and maybe bought cryptocurrency.
Right. And I want to be careful. We shouldn't. I don't want to say cryptocurrency because there's a million of them out there. I want
Well,
to. I will say just Bitcoin for now. And we
Bitcoin.
can talk about the differences between all of them.
Can we do that on
And
a
we're going to
separate
get
show?
into Bitcoin here in a minute.
Can
But
we talk about the difference between those on a separate show just so that we can
yeah,
prepare slides
absolutely,
and things like that?
100%.
Okay.
Because there is a very big difference between Bitcoin and every single one of the other ones.
Right, right,
Every single other one. Bitcoin is very, very different. So when you inflate the currency and you raise prices, and now it costs $10 for a box of cereal, a box of granola cereal, when it used to cost 6. Well, the person that only has cash, that only keeps his money in cash in the bank or under his pillow, they just lost that percentage, right? The stock market goes up almost 14% every year. Guess what? That's right where inflation is, right around
Right.
13, 12, 13, 14% every year. So stocks are going up at the same rate of inflation. People think the price of their homes are going up. Really, what it is the value of the dollar going down. And that's the part that I don't think a lot of people realize. It's not that you bought this asset that is, let's be honest. I heard this one guy in an interview. He goes, you can't tell me my house is more valuable than it was 4 years ago. I've got 2 3-year-olds. They've got more holes in the walls in the last few years in that bedroom back there than I've ever seen in my life. You can't tell me this house is worth more. My heater broke last month, blah, blah, blah. You're telling me this is worth 40% more of this house after it's just taken a beating like
Right.
this?
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, it's not going up in value. It's the dollar's value is what's going down.
Right. Right.
So that's the big.
So you're saying the purchasing power is
The
increasing.
purchasing power of your dollar is decreasing substantially. And that's why you
Right.
don't want to keep your money in cash in the bank, because you're losing purchasing power. Think about it. If you didn't buy that car last year or that house last year, what is it going to cost you this year? That difference in price, that's inflation.
That's
That's your
inflation.
inflation.
And
That's your inflation.
just really quick to those that don't understand how savings accounts work, basically, when you put your money in a savings account, you're letting the bank borrow your money. And what they're doing is taking that money that you gave them, and they're going to invest that money and make that institution money. And they'll give you, out of the 100% that they get back, the 100% of that return, they may give you 2.5% of
Right,
that
if you're
return.
lucky. If you're lucky. What
If
they do, and this is how banks make their money, beyond the fees they make when you take your money out of the bank, beyond the fees they make from charging you to get your money,
they're going to charge you just to create an account.
they're going to charge you to send you checks just so you can use your money. Right? They're going to charge you $50 for checks, right?
You're going to get feed to
So
death.
the way banks make their money is they take your money, and now they're allowed to, and correct me if I'm wrong, chat, they're allowed to loan out up to, I think it's like 8x the value of what you loan them. What you gave them, they're allowed to now loan out 8 times that value.
Right.
So that's how they make their money. And they charge the 7.5% interest rate, right? They're charging a crazy interest rate for loans, 30-year loans, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, they only want to give you, now you'll see you'll get calls on the phone. Hey, we got this new money market account. They're giving out 5%. Right. Ooh, and you're sitting there like, 5%. Wow, look how lucky I am. Of course they're going to give you 5%. Inflation is 10%.
Inflation is 10%.
So you're losing 5% on the deal. So why put your money there? It's a bad. Government bonds are underwater. No one wants to buy them. We're in a big crunch.
They've been that way for a while, right?
Well, no, it just started. Well, yeah, it's just started to kind of get worse and worse, the problem, because like I said, we're just printing more and more. And when you hear politicians and people say, inflation's coming down, all that means is that the rate that the prices are increasing isn't as fast, but it's still increasing. It's just not going up as fast anymore. Okay. So when you hear inflation is slowing down, that's what they mean. Prices are not coming back, right? We know that they're not coming back. They're just not going up as fast as they were a year ago, maybe. That's all they mean when they say inflation's coming.
That's why you have to listen to the rhetoric. You have to listen to the rhetoric. And if you don't understand, you have to ask questions until you get a satisfactory answer.
Absolutely. And you can use your own head. And we all go shopping. We all go to the grocery store. We know damn well prices in the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years have gone up exponentially, right? Don't tell me it's been 2.5% a year, 3% a year. That's nonsense. We're paying 40% more for a steak than we paid 4 years ago. Easily. And so the importance of this is to know that if you own assets, and listen, I understand, I grew up in a single parent home. My mother was a prison guard. Okay. My mother was a corrections officer.
Yeah, me too. I did that.
Home. I grew up with no silver spoon anywhere near my mouth. Okay. So I understand when people say, hey, investing costs a lot. It's how am I going to be able to invest enough for it to really make a difference? Well, that's why Bitcoin is so valuable. Okay. There is a website. It's a public company. It's called Coinbase.com. They are a publicly traded company. You can go on that website and literally buy $10 worth of Bitcoin and you can set it so you can make that purchase every month. What you wind up doing is you connect your checking account to it, and you can make that purchase every month for yourself easily. And you'll never miss $10 out of your bank account. You'll never miss it. And like I said, if that's too much, great, then buy $5 worth. But what I'm saying is you have to get started and you have to get in, because what's going on right now with Bitcoin is something that we've never seen ever before in our lives.
This is the website, right? Coinbase?
That's the website. Yep, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
And it's so easy to basically set up an account for yourself. It takes literally minutes. If Freezy wanted to go through and click set up an account, it would literally take him a minute, and he could own Bitcoin in a matter of minutes.
I would do it here if I had dummy info.
I think maybe we should wait. We should wait. We don't want to show. I don't even know if we should put their website up there. I don't know. But
yeah.
What I will say is, you wouldn't believe the little bit that can make a difference in this particular industry. What we're seeing with Bitcoin is it's exploding. You can look up the price chart yourself. Bitcoin is the answer. And here's why it's the only answer that I've seen that makes sense. Bitcoin is the first human engineered monetary system with rules, but no rulers. And it's decentralized. Let me explain that. Okay. When I say decentralized, I mean no one party controls it. There's no company. There's no company.
No, it's not US dollar backed.
No, there's no CEO. It is not backed by the Fed. It is a monetary system that was built. It's a computer program that someone built, Satoshi built, and gave it away to the world. Right. And the reason why it's so valuable is, you could just imagine being Jewish during the war, when they were killing off Jews left and right, and you had to get out of town immediately. Right. You had to leave with the clothes on your back and the assets on your back.
Right.
What better to own than Bitcoin at that point? You can take Bitcoin, you can remember 10, 12 words in your head and be able to retrieve your account for Bitcoin. Right. And Bitcoin is all about self-custody as well. And we'll get into that in another show, but self-custody is important. Now, no, the government can't come take it. I got it. I have control of mine.
Right.
I've got control of it. And remember, it's decentralized. So it's not like any one party can come in and say, we're shutting this down. It's not worth, blah, blah, blah. It's been.
What about taxes? Can it be taxed?
Once you sell it for profit, you must pay taxes. Just like any other asset you sell for profit, you have to pay taxes.
Okay.
Now, you don't have to pay. It's just like property, but as you own it, you don't have to pay taxes. You don't pay taxes on ownership like you do your house. You don't pay a maintenance fee like you do for your house.
Like your car.
Pay your car. This is just, you buy it and you sit on it, right? And you treat it like your savings account. That's why I said $10 a month. Whatever you can afford, $20 a month, you name it. If you can afford to put that in Bitcoin, it's such a great idea because it is the best performing asset. And it was recently, they opened what we call, in January, they approved an ETF, right? An ETF is a financial instrument that now banks can buy, large entities can buy, corporations, and it is blowing up. When I tell you it is the most performant ETF in the history of ETFs, there's thousands of ETFs for gold, for this, for that. Bitcoin ETF is the highest performing. What I mean by highest performant, I mean these corporations and these rich people are buying it like you've never seen before. It has gone up to where, as far as market cap, to where gold was, and as far as an ETF value, it's basically done what gold took 6 years to do. It did in 6 months.
Wow.
Okay. So, and it's not even been 6 months. I guess it is. June would be 6 months. It started in January. So rich people are buying Bitcoin.
Right.
They're buying Bitcoin. And they're buying it because it's not only the best performing asset, but it's one of the few places you can put your money and hold on to that economic energy, right? You put it in the bank account, you're going to lose 15% of your economic energy. And then guess what? In 5 years, what do you got? You got something that can buy 5% of what you could have bought 10 years ago or 5 years ago, right? So you have to put it in something that's going to conserve your energy,
right? Your
economic energy and your monetary energy, right? So Bitcoin is the first monetary network, right? We've seen the internet. The internet is a communications network. We've seen how it's made communication super cheap, right? We can call anyone in the world. We can do a video call with anyone in the world for free.
Right. Right.
And we're going to get into another conversation here at another time, Freezy, is if we have all this technology that's making everything so cheap, how come we don't see the benefits of that? How come we're paying so much more for everything that's so much cheaper to make? Are you telling me that it's harder to make bread than it was back then?
No.
Is bread more in demand than it was back then? I don't think so.
Right.
So why are we paying 4, 5, 6x what we paid back in the day for bread when it's so cheap to make now? So we'll get into that. That's a whole other conversation.
And it may be lower quality. We're paying 10 times.
It's all manufactured. It's
something that may be lower quality.
Exactly. So we've got lower quality homes. You may, that was built back in the day. That's why it's still there. That's because they built things differently back then. Now, when you're in a system where the money is broken is what it comes down to. The dollar bill is broken. Now, it's not as broken as the peso and some of these other nations that are now dollarizing because you think we lost value. The peso, 10 years ago was like I think it was 10 to $1. Now it's like 200 to $1. I mean, you think you lost value, right? Imagine being them. And the reason why a lot of those countries have already moved to a Bitcoin standard is because, like I said, they've already seen this pain that 9-year-old girl felt, that you and I feel when we go to the grocery store. They've been feeling it for a long time because it's much worse. The inflation in those countries is much, much worse than it is here. And that's why we're the last ones to feel it. We're the last ones to feel it because we're in the great nation of the USA.
Right.
Okay. So now we're starting to feel it. Now 9-year-old girls are starting to feel it. And people don't know what to do. What do? You've got to make sure you're putting your money in something that's going to maintain its economic value. And Bitcoin is the first one that can do, is really the best one that can do that. The best asset you can do to buy it, best asset you can buy that will actually maintain that energy. It's just super valuable, super important to get yourself invested in an asset that's going to increase as they continue to print dollars. And just so you know, this monetary system goes through what they call halvings. A halving is when they decrease the amount that they produce by half.
Okay.
So they just went through a halving in Bitcoin a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago.
Right.
And if you look at a chart, if you go and you Google chart, Bitcoin halving chart, you'll see what happens after a halving. If you're a miner and you're mining Bitcoin, and when I say mining Bitcoin, I'm really just referring to people that utilize
MINER, like with a hard hat, right? Yep.
Exactly.
Not a miner like under 18.
Correct.
Right,
a miner like a gold miner.
Right.
So when you mine Bitcoin, of course, you're not using a pitch and a shovel. You're just using a computer to solve a very hard algorithm. They call that mining for Bitcoin. Okay, it's a very hard algorithm that you're solving or using your compute to help solve, and that's how you earn part of that Bitcoin for helping solve that algorithm and that problem. So that's what Bitcoin mining is. So if you're a miner now, after the halving, you get paid half the amount you used to get paid because we're only producing half the amount.
Right.
So if you're the one who's mining and you're only going to get half the amount, what do you think is going to happen to the price of that thing that you are going to sell? Eventually, it's going to go up
because of the supply and demand principle, right?
Supply and demand.
Right.
Now, when you cut the supply in half, which it does every 4 years, half. Right now, of the 21 million Bitcoin that are going to be produced, I think about 19 million have been produced already. So they're out there. Now, over the next 100 years, they'll still be producing Bitcoin, but it'll just be small pieces of Bitcoin, right? So they'll only
because more and more people will be coming to the party, so there'll be more of a demand.
Well, the way the computer program works is it's only going to put out. So the last 50 years, it's only going to be 1% of a Bitcoin that's going to be put out. Or 1% of the whole Bitcoin. But the most important thing to remember is it's only going to be 21 million ever Bitcoins. There'll only ever be 21 million. And you cannot inflate the supply. You cannot make more. You cannot build more Bitcoin. You cannot mine for more Bitcoin. There's only a certain amount that you can mine every day. There's only a certain amount of output you can do every day, and it's fixed. It's a computer program that's fixed. So now this is the very first digital commodity, very first digital asset that we've ever had in mankind. What happened when we digitized cameras and we digitized cameras? They put Kodak out of business, right?
Out of business.
Put Kodak right
And they
out
were
of
dumb.
business.
They were dumb. Yeah, they were dumb too. Like, well, people will always want to take pictures. Not they will want to take pictures, but not that way.
Right,
Right?
right.
You
Gone.
remember, same thing with Blockbuster. Like
Yep.
Pete Blockbuster told people nobody would ever want to watch a movie in their home when they can go to the movie store and go rent
Right. Who the
DVDs.
hell wants to do that?
Who wants to watch a new movie in their home when they can go to the store? It's the dumbest thing you ever heard in your life.
Yeah.
You know?
So what they're hoping is that we all stay so entertained that we don't pay attention to what's going on. But the money printing has gotten so bad and prices have risen so fast that they can't pull the wool over our eyes anymore. We now see it. We can now see prices changing. I'm telling you, 2 weeks, it must have been a 2 week gap. I saw just like a bottle of a club soda went up 50%, not 50%, but like 50 cents. And like, I mean, it was a small thing, but I was like, you just raised your prices last month. Now you raise this again. I buy this all the time here. I know what this is,
Right.
and it's happening everywhere. And
Right.
if you don't own some type of asset that's going to increase with value as
Right.
this is happening, then you're
Right.
going to be left behind. And we're going to see some really, really hard times coming here, Freezy, because once AI kicks in, oh my God, now all of a sudden, tons of people are losing their job, right? And if you
Right.
don't need to, who's paying off those student loans then? Who's paying off the store loans right now? We're going to have a big real estate. We're going to have a big real estate issue here soon when it comes to office buildings, right? I mean, no one's going to office buildings anymore,
Right.
right? They're all empty. So there's going to be a major crisis with office real estate.
Right.
I forget the proper word for it, but there's going to be a problem there because no one's using these office buildings anymore.
Right.
No one's using them, and someone's paying for it. So we're going to see a problem there, and there's going to be something that happens where they're going to, if put it like this, the next time something happens, they're going to print trillions. I don't know what the emergency is going to be. Maybe it's aliens. They're going to say it coming down. I don't know
Right. Right.
I don't know what they're
Right.
going to do, but they're going to find a reason to print. Okay. But we're coming to a head here because we're noticing AI and so many of these different things that are reducing the costs of things so much. But you have a system that's based on debt, and deflation is fundamentally, at odds with a debt-based system.
Right.
The reduction of prices is just not, that doesn't happen in a debt-based system. We're in a debt-based system where we see prices grow up all the time because it's based on growth, right? They
The
say,
only time you'll see deflation is when the world's economy starts holding on to its money, right? Instead of you purchasing and things like that. And everybody, think about this. What I'm saying about deflation. Say the only time deflation would be triggered is if in 6 consecutive cycles, somebody instead of spending $1,000 of their $1,000 check, say they only spend $50. So no money is going back into the economic cycle, right? And so what happens is after 6 cycles, then after 6 cycles of seeing a downward trend, then you may see deflation. But deflation is so rare. You're talking about maybe once every 25 to 30 years, maybe because of a housing crisis or something like that. But you don't see it often enough for it even to be in our vernacular. Most of the time, we should be worried about inflation because
we absolutely
inflation
do.
is the monster that's out there. And you've
Inflation,
seen it.
I'm sorry, Freeze, go ahead.
No, go ahead, bro.
I'm going to say that inflation and the inflating of the currency has been the downfall of the history of every single currency that has ever existed. All right. No currency has ever made it. No currency that has ever existed has lasted forever. None of them. None of
Right,
them.
right.
And it's because of inflation. As soon as you inflate the currency, it's the beginning of the downfall of the civilization. The Roman Empire, you name it. You go back, the Persian Empire, all of them fell because of inflation.
Right.
They were using gold coins. Well, they started cutting the gold coins and putting like a little copper in there and some other things. And it wasn't, everyone knew, right? Remember how you used to see people in the old movies, they used to bite it to make sure it
Right.
was real. And they used to do all
Make sure
kinds
it's
of
real.
stuff to
Yeah.
make sure the gold was real because they
Yeah.
started inflating the currency. And when you inflate it, you're basically saying what you work for now, you have to work harder to have the same thing. And
Right.
it's been the downfall of every single civilization known to man, inflation and inflating the currency. Because think about it, once your money goes bad, what do you have?
Uh, Nothing. Civilization can't stand without a
A money.
and yeah, yeah,
You need a money. You need
yeah,
something that's going to stand for money. Otherwise, we go back to the whole barter system. Is I gotta trade you 15 cans of Sprite or whatever or club soda for your horse or for whatever. And
or
that's
for a
just,
tire. Yeah, yeah.
we're right back to where we started. We're just reversed 100 years once we do that,
Right.
and that's why inflation and the history or the future of what's going on with the dollar is so in question right now. When we took Russia's money and we said, Russia, you messed up, you went into Ukraine, all this money you have in the US, all this money that is yours, it's now ours. As soon as we weaponized the dollar and did that, and I'm not saying it was a bad thing or anything like that, but as soon as we
Right.
did that, that made every single country around the world say, whoa,
Right.
the US is going to play like that? Why do
Right.
you think the BRICS nations, whether it's Brazil, Russia, India, Colombia, they're forming the BRICS nations, and maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. They're
Yeah.
now they're trying to form their own currency together so that they can now trade and buy oil from one another in that new currency because they do not want to use the dollar anymore.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
that's kind of the situation we're in, Freezy. I know people must be tired of hearing me talk at this point.
Nah, man. Nah, I think we made a lot of headway, man. My I think though, man, you listen. 45 minutes flies by, bro. And we didn't talk about Tom Thibodeau's rotations. We didn't talk about Leon Rose, right? And we didn't argue back and forth or talk over each other. None of that, man. It was kind of like, it kind of
I
flew
want to
by.
know how can you bring it upon yourself? And I know you do it every day, and I'm just shocked. I'm surprised. I can't believe you have the energy. Uh, how do you sit there and spend so much time and energy looking at these potential draft picks when our team might just blow off the whole draft again? Like that bothered me so much, Freezy, when that happened. It made me feel like all that time and effort was for nothing. I'm like,
Um,
I just felt like, wow, I'm valuing this and they're not. Why am I putting my effort into this if they don't value it?
well, for one, I'm gonna tell a very long story in a short amount of time, right? So for one, I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm an absorber, right? And like so I grew up in the city. I grew up in the city. I grew up in a ghetto, right? So instead of my mom sending me outside, she would park me in front of PBS, right? And so I would sit there and I just sit there and like stuff would just amaze me, right? Like for instance, when we have those Tom Thibodeau type conversations or draft conversations or like this conversation about taking control of your financial future, I'm always like gleaning something from something, even if I can repurpose it and use it for something else. Right. So everything you get in life, you may not be able to use it for its natural intent, but you may be able to repurpose like the way that you not maybe what you learned may not be as important as how you learned it. And you can apply how you learned it to other things to improve how you learn about other stuff. Right. So it's one of those things when I sit back and look at the draft and all of that stuff, man, it's one of those things like, huh, I see what these guys are doing here. Maybe the information is not that, but I can use this stuff for my production company that I'm working on. Like I see how they do all these things. So maybe the player doesn't move me, but maybe the person I got the information from and how they
Mm.
gather information can help me gather information going forward. Is man, I'm a lifelong learner, bro. Right after we do this, I'm gonna go in the room and finish learning how to do Python. So Python is for those that don't know
Oh, I
Python.
know all about Python, man. Good
Yeah,
luck with
yeah.
that. Good luck with that. But see here, Freezy, I would be careful how much time you spend learning that programming. I think it's important to understand the basis of how you're putting those different different commands together.
Right, right, right.
But with AI, I actually sell an AI tool that does that. I can give it a prompt. Hey, write me a Python program that,
Get out of here. Are you serious?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. So don't spend too much of your time learning how to program right now, because programming is,
Gonna be dead in a little bit, right?
yeah,
Because
man.
because of
Yeah.
AI.
I sell a tool that, how most banks, I work with a lot of banks, they use a lot of COBOL. COBOL is a very, very old programming language that you can't even find people that know this language anymore. It's so damn
Not
old.
right.
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 So they need to now update and modernize those systems and those programs. So I sell a tool that will take that COBOL and press a button, it'll convert it over to Python or any other language you want in a matter of a press of a button.
SQL also? You
Any language, any language, any language.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll talk about that away from this. But I want to thank you for coming through, bro. We definitely have to do this again.
Yeah, I'm interested in doing it again. I know we ran through a bunch of stuff. Once again, Bitcoin is different from a lot of the other cryptocurrencies because of the fact that it is a proof of work, decentralized blockchain. And all that means is there's no rulers, but there are rules. And it also means that it's proof of work, which means it takes energy to produce a Bitcoin. It takes
Right.
electricity and a lot of energy to produce a Bitcoin. It's not
Right.
just coming out of thin air. So
Right.
that energy is produced, and it builds this monetary commodity of a Bitcoin that you can then purchase and hold on to hold on and maintain your economic and financial energy. It's just super, super important, because we're about to see inflation stay really, really high, unfortunately, which means
Right.
prices are going to continue to rise, and stay high. It's called
Right.
stagflation. And when I tell you that jobs are going to go, we might see some tough times. And that's why you just have to protect yourself. It's vitally important, vitally important.
All right. Well, thank you for coming through, bro. We
Thank
definitely
you.
do this again at some point. Everybody watching, to all the viewers, man, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button, ask us questions. Again, this is vibes and stuff. It's not Blorence Tears. The Blorence Tears fans the chat would have been loaded all the way top to bottom, asking me about Frank Ntilikina's whatever. But on vibes, this is the type of conversations we have here. Those that impact the community, and we make smart people accessible to everybody, that where we can share in knowledge and experiences and help each other out in some ways, and maybe prevent certain things in other ways. Ivory 10, thanks again, man. I appreciate you, bro.
Salute.
Thank y'all for
It's
watching.
a
We out
pleasure.
here.
It's a pleasure.
Peace.
Be good, everybody.